Hey there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Food Experience. Today's food experience, the good folks at Vevor sent me their 10-inch blade slicer. I believe it's 240 watts. This thing is a powerhouse and it works so good. I've already used it to slice up a bunch of items, but I thought I had a video where I cleaned the blade and showed people how to clean the device, and I didn't. So normally it comes with manufacturing oil on the blade that you want to get rid of. And either case, in between times when you're finished using it, you definitely want to clean off that blade so it doesn't get any bacteria or anything like that. We're going to start off with how to remove the blade and how to clean it. And without further ado, here we go. Here's a look at the device. And before anything else, I want to show you how to clean the blade and how to remove it. So to remove the blade, you have to remove the blade cover, and that's going to be this knob. Just loosen it. It'll come all the way out like that. On the front, there's a plate that covers the blade. And to remove it, just push this thing all the way in, and that's going to pop it out like that, and you could easily remove it. At this point, you can remove that knob. There's a look at the blade. If you notice, there are 3 different hex screws. When I first got this, these screws were so tight. It may take a little bit of elbow grease to get them off. There's nothing that really stops the blade from turning around. You see how that is? It just spins around and around. So it could be a little tough getting the first screw started. You may want to use some cut-resistant gloves to hold the blade in place. I would use cut-resistant gloves when working with the blade no matter what anyways. So just remove these hex screws. Once the first hex screw is removed, you can use the knob and shaft that came from the back and screw it into the first hole. Once that is screwed in, you could slide this part and it will prevent the blade from turning. And that'll make removing the next 2 hex screws a lot easier. Then I would switch positions and go for this hole and the last hex screw. Now that all 3 of the hex screws are removed, make sure to put these aside and do not lose them. Remove the knob and shaft. You may have to give a good tap from the back. I got real nervous around that blade, folks. But there's a look at the internals, and you can now clean all of this off. I really wouldn't recommend too many chemicals on it. Maybe some Dawn and hot soapy water. Here's a look at the blade. Definitely very heavy and very sharp. Once you have it in your sink, I would use some very hot water. Maybe get a scrubber like this. Shoot it with some Dawn liquid detergent. And clean away. Once you feel one side is clean, rinse it off with some cool water. And you can do a final rinse afterwards. Then you'll need to carefully turn the blade over. Hot water, Dawn, and give it a good scrubbing as well. And give it a good rinse. You could hold it by putting your fingers through the center. And if you still see some gunk on there, just go ahead and get it off. And that should pretty much do it. She's clean and ready to go for another round. When you reinsert the blade, you want to make sure the holes in the blade line up with the hex screws. And you'll feel it click back into place. At this point, you want to replace all the hex screws. Put the guard over. It'll go right into place like that. And from the rear, insert the shaft and knob back into place where it belongs. Kind of hold this down at the same time. And screw it tight. Now I'll take you through an overview of all the features. Here's a look at the Vevor meat slicer with a 10-inch blade. Everything came assembled except for this guard right here. There are 2 screws that go through the plate here, and it has a big flathead slot where you could screw it in by holding this and screwing it tight. I just did that off camera. In the front you have this pusher thing right here. It pushes the meat towards the blade. It also has spikes to secure to the meat, that way it's not going to slip out. When slicing different things, use this handle right here. It has a very smooth operation, I will say. The lower left side, you'll see the Vevor logo. Has 4 heavy-duty rubber feet, non-skid for sure. On the left-hand side, you have an adjustment knob here, which controls how many millimeters thick you want each slice. And it starts off past 0, a little bit past 0, but I believe you want to start it right at the 0 mark for the thinnest slice. I'm going to experiment with that. We'll see what happens. But it could go all the way to 12 millimeters, which is close to ½ an inch. And you could see it move up and down as I turn this knob. 2-button operation. There's power off and power on. The power off is extended out a little bit more. I've already connected it to power. If I power it on, there we go. It's fairly quiet operation, I'll say. Blade spinning nice. You can't really see it from that angle. To turn it off, just press the power button. And each button has a rubberized thing around it. Whatever you're slicing will fall right in this area. At the top of the device, there's a sharpener. And you just turn this crank to the left, counterclockwise. This pops up. Flip it around. There are 2 discs there. Probably can't see them from the angle that they're at. And drop it into place. Tighten the hand screw. And there's a button right here you can push to make contact with the sanding stones. And when you want to switch it back, just unscrew, pull it up, rotate it around, back down, and tighten it back up again. Let's put in the onion. And I'm just going to put this right behind it. Onions I want to slice super thin. So I'm going to go, I wonder if it'll even work on the 0. Like it almost looks like it should want to work that way. I'm going to go to the first mark, which is like 0.5, even though it's not written down on there. And let's see what happens. Yeah, those are definitely really thin, super thin. These would be great for an Oklahoma onion burger, I think. Wonder if I could go a little thinner. Here we go. These are so nice and super thin. Really does an excellent job and pretty effortless too. This time I'm going to try a tomato. Not even sure if it's able to handle it, but I want to try it. I'm going to go right behind it and just push it. Start her up. Yeah, that's good enough. That's almost all the way down. Check that out. Hopefully that comes through okay in the camera. Next up I have a 1-pound dinner ham. Put the ham down. I'm going to put the arm behind it. It has spikes coming out the back as well as it does underneath. We want the ham to be pretty thin. Let me go for 1.5 millimeters. See what it looks like. It's a little bit thicker than what I'd like for a sandwich, so I'm going to go a bit thinner. I set the thickness to 0.5 millimeter. Let's go. That's pretty thin, but I'd still like to get thinner. See if I could try it on the 0 mark. There we go. That's not bad at all. I'll continue at 0 millimeters, which is still more than 0 millimeters, but here we go. I think I've cut so many pieces, it's backing up. Turning it off for a minute. Would you look at that, folks? That is a grip of ham. Definitely multiple sandwiches. Now I'll try to see if it will slice through this. This is a bottom round rump roast that I smoked on my Pit Boss. And I'll go right behind it. I'm also looking to slice it super thin. So here goes nothing. I have it on the 0 setting at the moment. And that is definitely really paper thin. You could almost see through it a little bit. And it goes through it really effortlessly. I wasn't sure because this is a little bit of a tougher cut. I literally have mounds of roast beef. The last item I'm going to run through the slicer is this ribeye. Would you believe these prices? That is so ridiculous. Come on now. I've had this in the freezer for about 45 minutes and we'll see how it does. I have the slicer set just below 3 millimeters. Kind of worried about the fat. The fat on some ribeye could be really hard, but this thing's been slicing through just about everything, so let's do it. And really, it's just about there. The only thing I have left is this fat cap on the end that really don't want to use anyways. Let's check it out. That's a nice bounty of meat. And also I'm going to discard some of this fat. And really that concludes all my slicing examples. Let's go back up and I'll give you my final thoughts. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are with the Vevor 10-inch meat slicer. I refer to it as a deli slicer because honestly, you could slice just about anything with it. You saw my examples: cucumbers, tomatoes, onions, a couple different kinds of meat, a few different kinds of meat. I'm really enjoying this thing. The carriage slides so smoothly and effortlessly, and the blade slices things like it's nothing at all, like butter, you know? I like that it has the blade sharpener on top. It's fairly easy to remove the blade. However, I might have mentioned it in the up and close when I was trying to remove the blade. Those screws are so tight. You really got to torque on them pretty hard just to get them started. But once you get one started and you remove it, you could easily put the knob and shaft that comes from the back right in one of those holes and use it as like a stopping mechanism to help loosen the others. So if it wasn't for that, I don't even know if I'd get that blade off, but no big deal. Easy enough to do. You will need a hex ball head driver that I will link in the description down below, at least to the one that I'm using. It's fairly inexpensive. It can be purchased on Amazon. So yeah, definitely get one of those if you don't already have a 4 millimeter driver. Disassembling and cleaning the device seems pretty straightforward and easy. I haven't completely disassembled it yet, but I don't really feel like I need to. You do have to remove the blade cover and then the blade. The blade is a little bit difficult to get out. You saw I had to kind of tap it with the back end of a screwdriver because it's really kind of locked into place, okay? And same thing when you're putting it back on. Now I'm thinking to myself, could there have been a better, easier way to remove the blade without it going clang clang all over the place? And I think there is. I think once you remove the screws, if you were to tilt the machine forward, like I can't really even do it right now, but basically down like that, the blade's going to go straight down instead of flying off to the left or right or wherever it wants to go. So that's something you may want to consider as well. And you may want to remove the carriage before removing the blade. It'll lay more flat and it really won't have much place to travel. In fact, I'll try that on an up and coming video. I just ran out of time on this one and can't really get that done at the moment. Tomorrow I'm going to use it to slice a brisket that I smoked most of the day today, and I'll be making some brisket chili, so stay tuned for that one. This device weighs a lot. I think it was 45 pounds or something like that. It definitely feels like commercial quality. The electric cord, definitely nice and heavy duty electric cord. It does require a ground. Make sure you have a grounded outlet. Also, I like the adjustment knob on the side, letting you adjust your thickness of whatever you're slicing down to paper thin all the way up to 12 millimeters. Definitely a good range. And, there's a different purpose for everything that you're slicing. Like when I'm making smash burgers, I want to have those onions paper thin. So when I'm at 0, it's not really 0. I mean, obviously there's a width to it, but it's super paper thin. It has spikes going down and also forward. I don't exactly know the real term for it, but it holds things in really well. That way, if what you're slicing needs to be held from behind, you just go from behind. And if it's longer than this, then just go from on top. And as you're going down, you can kind of jog it back up and back down again. So all in all, I definitely recommend the Vevor 10-inch meat and deli slicer. Don't forget to look at my description. I will have a link back to Vevor where you can purchase this. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, drop me a line below. I thoroughly enjoy hearing from you. And I think we're just about out of here. I'm going to close this out. With that said, have a stellar day. Be excellent. And most of all, remember me. I'm KJ Andy O, your food experience host with the most. Y'all take care, and I'll see you next time.